All right, I want to welcome everyone back to Drunk Sports Talk, New York's new number one sports talk show. We are the voice of the streets. We're going to breeze through the intros today because we have a special guest. You know me already. It's your boy Cash, along with my boy Q. And today, like I said, we have a very special guest. You probably heard him on Mad Dog Radio, SiriusXM. Probably seen him on ESPN. I know you watch his channel, the Jake Asman Show, the number one Jets show, in my opinion. Jets insider and analyst, the one and only Jake Asman. What's going on, fam?
Well, thank you for the introduction. I appreciate you guys having me on the show. Now, I got a lot to live up to.
Listen, man, it's been a wild ride, man. We're just coming off this Knicks playoff run. So the whole city is exciting, but now OTAs have started, and the football juices are starting to flow a little bit. We cover the Giants and the Jets, so we figured who better to talk to about the Jets than Jake Asman. But how I want to start it off is this year. I look around and I'm saying it's got to be all chips into the middle of the table. Push all chips into the middle of the table. And Rodgers is a little bit older. He's coming off the Achilles. We're all hoping he has another Pro Bowl, MVP type of year. I believe he will. There's some skeptics out there, Colin Cowherd, Nick Wright, these media pundits who kind of hate on him every chance they get. He looks in great shape. Just get to look at him a little bit in OTAs. He looks spry. He looks fit. What's your opinion on Rodgers this year? And also, what is your opinion on the ceiling for the Jets? Is it Super Bowl or bust, or will the AFC East division title and a playoff run be sufficient?
Well, I think the two are kind of connected, right? Like they can't be a playoff team. They certainly can't be a Super Bowl team unless they're getting that version of Aaron Rodgers that you're talking about. Now, I don't know if he's the MVP of the league. I don't know if that's fair to put that expectation on him coming off this injury at his age, but I'd be shocked if he's not still very good, if he's not a top 10 quarterback in the league. He's Aaron Rodgers. Like the arm still works. The brain still works. He's got the chip on the shoulder. Believe me when I say that. He hears everything people say about him. And I think that motivates him. So, to me, the key is if he's healthy, I think the Jets are a contender because I think the roster has proven to be very good. And that was before the additions they made this offseason, especially to the offensive line and adding another receiver in Mike Williams, drafting Malachi Corley. So, I think if you tell me Aaron's healthy, he's a top 10 quarterback. And then is it Super Bowl or bust? I mean, look, this is a franchise that hasn't been to the Super Bowl since they won it back in 1969. So I can't sit there and say if they went to the AFC title game, I'd be, saying it's a failed year if they lost to Mahomes at Arrowhead, right? So I think you got to see how the year plays out. But the minimum goal for me, and I've said this a lot on the show, is make the playoffs, win a playoff game. And ideally, the goal for the regular season should be win the damn division so we can have a home playoff game for once.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So you bring that up now because I've been reading and I've been hearing projections. So, I wanted to see if you actually agree because I think I've been hearing some crazy stuff. I think they said they have a 63% chance of getting to the playoffs. They're predicted to win about 9.5 games, and they're predicted to be like the third best in the AFC East. Now, I have my own opinion on that, but I just wanted to see your take on that because to be honest, I just don't agree with that.
That sounds crazy.
Yeah, 9.5. Look, the reason why it's set that way is because outside of like maybe a select few in the national media and like people are actually no ball, people just see Jets on the helmet. Oh, it's the Jets. They're going to stink. LOL Jets. Darius Rucker, who's a Dolphins fan, says, you're still the freaking Jets. It's like, excuse me, you're a Dolphin fan. What have you guys won? Last time y'all won a playoff game, Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. So it's just that's just a perception of the Jets that they're a joke. They always get it wrong. Oh, you had Rodgers. Ha, ha, ha. He got hurt on the opening drive of the year. So they got to change that stigma. But objectively speaking, if you just look at the talent, remove the word Jets from the helmet, this is, to me, the most talented team in the AFC East. Now, Aaron's got to be healthy, but at least they have a legitimate backup. They could survive, a traditional, if you will, quarterback injury. Aaron rolls his ankle. He's out 3 games. Tyrod could go 2-1. Like that could happen. They're not set up to do that. But the big thing is Aaron, which of course we talked about, but I think the Jets are the best team in the AFC East. Now we got to find out about this coach. I get it, but Buffalo and Miami haven't gotten better with their off seasons. Now Buffalo still has Josh Allen. He's great, but I mean, the rest of the team, a lot of question marks. And it's so funny, right? Everyone, when they talk about the Jets, is if they could stay healthy. And I get it. Because a year ago, we talked about the Dolphins and said if Tua could stay healthy.
Right.
Ironically, he was one of the few quarterbacks that actually made it healthy through the full year. So, look, it's a year-to-year league. Health matters. If you're a Nick fan, like you guys are, you know how that went, too. So, health's the biggest thing. But if you tell me the Jets get relative health, especially at quarterback, I think they're winning the division for the first time since 2002.
No, I agree. And a few minutes ago, you brought up a point about the offensive line. And we all know when Joe Douglas got here, one of his main focuses was to upgrade the offensive line. I remember him saying that that's like my main priority. But up until now, he really hasn't been able to do so. I don't want to say not from a lack of trying, but certain moves didn't pan out. You know, Mekhi Becton, a couple of other guys. This offseason, on paper at least, he seems to have figured it out with the additions, obviously, of Morgan Moses, who's been here before, Joe Simpson. A lot of people wanted Brock Bowers. I think he did the right thing. He went out and got Olu Fashanu. I think Brock Bowers was probably the sexier pick, but Fashanu was probably the smarter pick. You want to secure that line. You know, you go out and get Tyron Smith, you know, who's necessary for Aaron Rodgers, obviously having a left tackle to cover that blind side. Tippmann, obviously, and his depth on that line. Your overall assessment of Joe Douglas's job on the offensive line, particularly?
I think he gets an A so far. Now, look, obviously there's some questions with Tyron Smith, but I think it's a worthwhile move. It was a risk worth taking. It's $6.5 million guaranteed. You know, there's incentives in the contract for games played. He played 13 games last year. He was second team All-Pro. He is still a great player. The only question is, can he stay healthy? Well, the good news is, in case he's hurt, which, let's be real, chances are at some point he's going to miss time. That's what history tells you. Olu Fashanu can now learn from Tyron Smith and then step in and play for Tyron Smith when need be, and then eventually take over as your long-term left tackle starting next year. I think it's a great situation at left tackle. I think you look at the right guard situation, AVT's back. You feel comfortable with him? You need some injury luck, obviously. Hopefully him staying at one position, knowing that's his position, can help him stay on the field. Morgan Moses has been a really solid player. We saw this with the Jets. He's been a durable player, so you love that move. It cost a comp pick in the 6th round to get him. I thought that was maybe just pound for pound the best pure move they made this offseason because no one had that as even a distinct possibility. Look, center, I think Joe Tippmann's going to be a really good player, man. I know Aaron Rodgers raves about him, and Aaron knows a lot of he knows a lot about center play, right? He's stuck his hands under a lot of people's rear ends over 20 years in the NFL. So he would know. And then look, I think left guard, you bring up Simpson. This guy had a good year with the Ravens last year. He's durable, and he's way better than Laken Tomlinson. So just like objectively speaking, they improved significantly with 3 new starters. The 2 starters that are back, one of them is AVT. He's a Pro Bowl level player. Tippmann, I think, has that type of talent. He was on the all-rookie team last year. Fashanu is now your swing tackle, backing up Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses. But let's be real, more likely Tyron Smith. You feel pretty good about this O-line. Like last year was a major weakness. I think it could be a strength this year. That's, to me, besides Aaron being back, the biggest difference with this year's team versus last year's team.
I agree. I was listening to your show the other day, and something, I forget the guy you had on, but
Bobby Midnight.
I might have been. You guys were talking a lot about the tight ends and how they're looking in OTAs. And, you know, we don't take a lot out of OTAs because there's no pads, obviously. And, you know, 7-on-7, 11-on-11s, we get a little more serious when we get the mini camp. But, you know, just looking around OTAs, you hear a lot about them running that 12-man personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends. You know, something Belichick used to like to run versions of when he was, you know, with New England. Talk about that in terms of the tight end room. Like I said, Tyler Conklin, who's very good. Jeremy Ruckett, who's a local kid from Long Island, where we are at now. But
where in Long Island are you guys?
I'm in at North Massapequa.
Nice, go Chiefs.
Yeah, there you go. So, like you're hearing about Kenny Aboa. You know, I mean, I'm hearing Aaron Rodgers is kind of taking a shine to him. He's kind of, you know, shining, so to speak, for lack of a better term, in OTAs. What are you hearing about Kenny Aboa, and what do you think about the Jets tight end room?
I like the tight end room. I think it's an underrated room. I think Tyler Conklin's a good football player. I think he's been victimized by the worst quarterback performances we've seen in football the last 2 years. I think him and Rodgers had a lot of chemistry last year, and we never saw it because Rodgers got hurt, unfortunately. So I know they're close, too. If you actually saw Aaron's Instagram today, him and Tyler Conklin were, you know, at some park, it looked like, maybe working out, getting a workout in. So that was cool to see. But Look, I think Jeremy Ruckert, he finally gets a chance to play. Sometimes it takes a few years for tight ends. Last year he sat behind CJ Uzomah for the second year in a row. Now Ruckert's clearly tight end too. Maybe Yeboah pushes him, and Yeboah is more of a pass catcher in this offense, and Ruckert's more of a guy you bring in for blocking and that physicality you want in the running game. But I think they have a decent tight end room. If you're going to say the weakest part of the Jets offense is their tight end room, they got a damn good offense then, man, because I think their 3 tight ends could all play and contribute.
I agree.
Yeah. So speaking about the offense, like we know they have Breece Hall's crazy running back, right? Then they got Garrett Wilson. Then now there's some talks of this kid, Malachi Corley. Like not many rookie wide receivers come into the league to play with a guy with the type of skill level that Aaron Rodgers can bring to them. How important do you think that is going to be for his progression in the league? And do you think that this could be some type of dynamic duo as the season progresses?
Yeah, I definitely see a role for him right away. I think he's going to be their starting slot when it's all said and done. I mean, hearing Garrett Wilson rave about him the other day, I thought was noteworthy. And look, you look at what Corley brings to the table. He kind of fits what they want to be as an offense. Physical and really good after the catch. Well, his nickname in college was the Yak King. So you got the best yak receiver in the draft. Aaron came out and said that was his favorite receiver because of the things we just talked about. So I'm excited to see what he could do. I do think Xavier Gibson is still a nice player and will have a role in the slot as well. A different type of receiver, obviously, than Corley. But to me, the key for the entire receiver room is obviously you pray to the football gods that Aaron and Garrett Wilson are both healthy so we could see what we should have saw last year, which to me is like 1,500 yards and 10-plus touchdowns. I think Garrett Wilson can have a Devontae-like year with Aaron throwing to him. So you hope he could stay healthy. Same with Aaron. But Mike Williams' health is key. Yeah. And then who emerges, right? We're counting on Corley. You're counting on maybe something from Lazard, Gibson, Brownlee. Like, who's going to step up in that room if, God forbid, there's an injury or two? You feel like you're a little thin there. And there's no injuries, you're fine. Injuries happen. So you're going to need some guys to step up if they're not going to add another receiver, which at this point doesn't feel like they're going to do.
We're talking about the wide receiver room. Obviously, I love the Mike Williams acquisition. We needed a big playmaking wide receiver to go on the other side of 17. My partner talked about Malachi Corley. You just mentioned Lazard. What role, Lazard and Cobb were kind of like the guys that Aaron Rodgers brought over here to kind of get him acclimated to New York, it felt like, just to have him feel comfortable in the locker room, so to speak. But, Lazard last year, let's be honest, man, with all due respect, he was terrible. With Aaron Rodgers being back here, Aaron Rodgers being back, what type of role do you think Lazard will play? And, what do you think in terms of the wide receiver room, like in the order of where he'll be at?
Yeah, you bring up Randall Cobb. It's interesting. I actually ran into him today, which is pretty crazy because I saw Aaron Rodgers at UFC last night. This was my picture. I saw that
picture. That's awesome. Nice. Nice.
This was Cobb.
I love it.
Yeah. It looks like how my kid was finished with that.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was a tough season for him, obviously.
He's making a ton of money, and he's what it is.
It was tough. Yeah, I mean, look, I think anything you get from Lazard, I view personally as a bonus. Now, they're going to give him every opportunity. Like I was told by someone who's been at these OTAs that like Lazard's running with the first team. They're giving him every chance, try and earn back a spot. Rodgers likes him. Rodgers doesn't just kind of like throw people to the curve. He trusts his teammates, and he's going to give Lazard every opportunity. But he was just so bad last year. And here's the thing too: if Lazard ends up continuing to stink, there's really not a spot for him on the team. He doesn't play special teams. Right. You're going to play Brownlee over him. Gibson's your returner. You're going to play him. Corley, we know, is going to play. Mike Williams, when healthy, is going to play. Yeah. Garrett's obviously the best player on the offense besides maybe Breece. He's going to play. Like, Lazard could be a healthy and active if he can't be one of their top 4 receivers, which is possible. Brownlee might be better. So that's a storyline worth watching. If he's going to be a healthy and active, would they actually consider just cutting him outright? I don't know if they would. Maybe they just keep him. But there's an argument to be made. Allen Lazard would be a healthy and active on game day again.
No, absolutely. You mentioned Breece Hall, super stud. Everyone knows he's the guy. Let's talk a little bit about the running back room. Couple of nice acquisitions in the draft. Isaiah Davis, Braylon Allen. Tyreek Cohen they bring over here from the Bears hasn't played in a couple of years. He's more like a Swiss Army knife kind of guy, going to play a lot of special teams. Your thoughts on the running back room and what they're going to look like this year?
Look, Brees is a superstar, right? If he's healthy, he might be the best running back in football. I mean, I think it's so under-discussed how good he was last year. He had 1,600 yards from scrimmage, playing behind the worst offensive line in the sport, 13 different combinations in 17 games, an offensive coordinator who, let's be real, didn't know his rear end from his chin, admitted after week 8 he didn't realize how good Brees Hall was as a receiver when my 12-year-old cousin on Madden could have told you that. Like, it's insane. He was on a rep count at the beginning of the year because he was coming off the ACL injury, and he was unbelievable last year. He nearly had 1,000 yards. He, once again, had 600 yards receiving, and they didn't realize they could get him the ball till week 8. Like, he was amazing last year. It wouldn't shock me if he won Offensive Player of the Year. Like, Aaron Rodgers being back is amazing for the Jets, but he doesn't need to throw 40 times a game, especially right away. Yeah. This offense should be run through Brees Hall, and that includes him as a receiver too, which Aaron, maybe unlike Hackett, I'm sure will know how to get the ball to Brees Hall. So, look, I cannot wait to watch him. I pray he's healthy because I think he's the key to the offense.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, let's move on. Robert Saleh. We got to talk about Robert Saleh. You know, you're hearing rumblings about, you know, the ineptitude, for lack of a better term, of what's the offensive coordinator's name? Is losing. Not coming to me. Hackett, right? Yeah. So you're hearing that he's going to get more involved in the play calling. You know, there's been certain people in the media who's been, you know, down on Robert Saleh, you know, in terms of different things, play calling and having thin skin. You heard the whole thing about the Giants, you know, him complaining about the Giants last year in the media. How much of a role is he going to have in the offense? Because he's a defensive guy. We know he's a defensive coordinator in San Fran and a really good defensive guy. How much really of an input is he going to have in the offensive? Is he going to be installing the packages? I mean, to what extent is that going to be?
The way I view that is I think his role is to, like, basically sit with Rodgers and Hackett and be like, hey, from a defensive perspective, we're playing the Titans this week. Yeah. This is their personnel on defense. This is what I think they would do if I was coaching them for the plays we're going to try and run. Hey, they might, I'm watching film, they might try to do this. Be aware this could be coming. And I think that information is useful. I think we saw Brady and Belichick do this every week in that HBO NFL Films doc that followed Belichick back in that 2009 season. You can see it every week. They included that Brady-Bill meeting at the beginning of the week to go over tendencies of the team they were playing. I think that stuff's valuable. Do I think Saleh is going to be telling Hackett, hey, run this play and, like, taking over play calling? No, I think Rodgers is the play caller. I think Rodgers has full autonomy to do whatever the hell he wants at the line of scrimmage. That's how it should be. And people make a lot of this. It's the same thing as Peyton Manning with Adam Gase. Like, Adam Gase was not this offensive genius quarterback whisperer. He had a good relationship with one of the greats of all time. Hackett is not this genius, but he has a great relationship with one of the greats of all time. It's a very similar situation.
Yeah, but you know what? If that's the case, Adam Gase didn't work out too well. So hopefully it doesn't, you know, hopefully
not as a head coach, but as an OC, Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdowns. I'll take that from Aaron this year.
Absolutely.
That was a killer season.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball. They was already stout last year. Very good defense. Just one of the premier defenses in the league. Even though they were inept a little bit on offense. Obviously, you know, Quinnen Williams, Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson, they bring in Hassan Reddick and fabulous pickup. Javon Kinlaw to go along with Solomon Thomas, and they lost Bryce Huff, but they bring in all these guys to mesh with the guys they have right now. You know, what do you think about the defense in terms of that front seven?
I think they're stacked, man. I do. I mean, look, Will McDonald, I think, is the X factor. If he takes a step like Jermaine Johnson did last year, I mean, find me a better just defense, top to bottom, all three levels than the Jets. But I mean, look, Reddick is a great player, and he's playing for a contract. He's going to be highly motivated. Last year, I think we saw Bryce Huff have his breakout year. Reddick's better. Maybe Huff ends up being better over the next couple of years because Reddick is 30 and he's going to age out. I get that, but if you're trying to win the Super Bowl this year, who gives you the better chance to do it? I think it's without question Hassan Reddick. There are some questions in the D-line room, right? You're replacing JFM. Look, the one thing I'll say, though, the Jets have kind of earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to defensive players. They find Quentin Jefferson 6.5 sacks. They turned Bryce Huff into a guy who got paid $50 million guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at the player development on that side of the ball, they're very good at it. So I trust them when it comes to signing guys. I trust them when it comes to developing guys like Will McDonald taking a step. Jermaine Johnson should be even better now in year 3. I think Quinnen's going to ball out this year. He was a good player before Salah got there. He's now an all-pro level player. There's questions with Hackett. There's very little questions for me about Ulbrich and the defensive staff. I think they got a really good thing going on.
Yeah, and I think they got rid of Jordan Whitehead too, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because he was just giving up a ton of plays.
Yeah, good guy, but not a great signing, unfortunately.
No, I agree. How about that secondary? I heard you the other day on your show say that Sauce and DJ Reed are basically the new Cromartie and Revis Island. And I want to get into what you said. He'll be shadowing number 1 receivers, but talk a little bit about that secondary, mainly the cornerbacks. How good can they be? How good are they? And what do you expect from them this year?
Yeah, so I don't know if they're gonna let Sauce like shadow a number 1 game in game out like Revis just did. Like that. Yeah. That to me was insane. I don't know if we'll ever see that again to that level. I do think
we're a zone-based defense. Like that wouldn't.
It's not their scheme exactly. And but I've said for years the best coaches adjust their scheme to your talent. Like not allowing Sauce Gardner to shadow in certain circumstances is cutting off your nose to spite your face. That's like owning the Mona Lisa and displaying it in the garage, right? Like if you're the Jets and Tyreek Hill is out and Jalen Waddle's killing you, even though DJ Reed's a good corner, put Sauce on Waddle and shut him down. End of discussion. If David Njoku's destroying you on Thursday Night Football, we'll put Sauce on him before the game's out of reach. To me, CeeDee Lamb in week 2 last year, same thing. They have to be more proactive in adjusting, and it doesn't mean Sauce,
football,
right? It doesn't mean Sauce has to shadow every receiver, every play, but there's moments where he should, and I think that he will this year, which is great. And that's no disrespect to DJ Reed, just like it wasn't disrespectful to Antonio Cromartie that Revis is one of the best covered corners ever. Like you're trying to win. We know Reed's a good player. He's not Sauce, and it's the same thing. Cromartie was a really good player, but he wasn't Revis. Like that's okay, you know.
Like, was you think with Sauce it was just an ego thing? Did somebody whisper that in his ear? Like, where did that come from? Because I know, Sauce, no interceptions, and still made the Pro Bowl last year, so we know he's a great corner. But is that an ego thing? Does he say, I want to catch, I want to just, let me like LeBron saying, let me go get Steph or whatever. Is that an ego thing? You think?
Yeah, I think Sauce sees that people say, oh, you had no picks last year. Oh, you don't shadow. And he's like, well, our scheme doesn't let me shadow. Like I could do it. I think Sauce wants to challenge himself. I mean, Sauce is on a Hall of Fame trajectory already. Like that's not hyperbole. He's the first player at his position ever to make first team all pro in his first 2 years. Like if he stays healthy, he's on his way to Canton. Like that's a fact. So I think Sauce realizes the opportunity he has in front of him. He also sees the window they have right now with Rodgers, because getting a ring will be huge down the line for your legacy. They got a chance to do it this year. There's no doubt. And I think Sauce just sees the value in that. Plus, let's call it for what it is. Sauce Gardner's due for an extension at the end of this year. He's already going to be probably the highest paid corner of all time because he's the next guy up. But, I mean, you talk about a record-setting deal, even on the grander scale, if he has another all-pro season, and it's because, we're seeing him in prime time. He's got more picks. He's shadowing guys. Like, there's value in that. I mean, he sees it, and I like a guy that's already great. He's already, to me, the best corner in football, and he's still challenging himself to get better. I think that's what you want all your great players to have that mentality.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I know you said, get that ring for the Jets, right? Everybody knows there's super high expectations for the Jets to do something good, right? Regardless of what we know they can do, because we couldn't get a chance to see it last year, right? So now let's just say they have a mediocre season. And I know Johnson and Douglas, they're expecting greatness from these guys just as well, because on paper they look amazing, and I think if they could just get it all together, which we saw glimpses of it with just horrible quarterbacks last year, do great. They have a mediocre season. You think Salah is just going to be on the hot seat, or you think they're just going to fire him straight out?
I think he already on the hot seat.
Well, I think it depends. Like, what's a mediocre season? Like, if they go 7-10, I think they make clean house GM and coach. Like, if they go, 9-8, they're the 7 seed like Cleveland was last year, and CJ Stroud destroys them in the wild card game. Like maybe the GM stays and they hire a new coach because they think it's a coaching problem, not a talent issue why they underperformed. I think it really depends how the year goes. I think if they miss the playoffs completely, they should clean house. I think that because that'd be an unmitigated. Oh, look, obviously, if Rodgers gets hurt on the opening drive again, like there's context to it, but still, like at that point,
but then again, we got Tyrod. It shouldn't be that bad this year.
Exactly. Like that. Look, no teams. Like if Josh Allen got hurt on play 4 of the season, the Bills would be screwed too. But if the like Aaron Rodgers, if he plays 14 or more games and they miss the playoffs, I don't care if he missed 3 games. There needs to be changes. Like they have the longest playoff drought in North American sports. I am sick of it. It is time to make the damn playoffs when 7 teams make it in the conference, and you won 7 games the last 2 years with Zach Wilson playing most of your games. Now you have Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor. Like figure it out and go make the playoffs.
No, I agree. Real quick on Aaron Rodgers. You know, when he came here, there was this, you know, the media, and I'm not down on the media, but they, you know, they paint pictures and they paint narratives on certain players. You know, there's favorites in this. Aaron seems at times disliked in the national media. We love him over here. You know, there was this picture that they painted that he was aloof. He was, you know, he was weird. He, you know, the whole, you know, in the darkness and all the, you know, stuff they were trying to paint. You know, not a nice guy, whatever. But last year it seemed like he was very supportive. He came over here. You saw him at Broadway plays. You saw him at all these different Knick games and Yankee functions. He was out with you last night. He seems like he's embraced this town. In my opinion, in your opinion, why do you think Aaron is so disliked from the national media?
I think it all goes back to his take on the vaccine, right? I don't think anyone had a problem with Aaron Rodgers till he spoke out about
inoculated.
Not getting the vaccine, right? And I think they made him the villain from that. And look, Aaron does some of it to himself. Like he does speak on like quote unquote controversial topics at time, and he's unafraid to give his opinion, which naturally when you give your opinion on things, people will agree, people won't agree. Like that's kind of life. He doesn't, you know, stick to sports like some maybe want athletes to do, which that's never really been me. I just, you know, I think that's part of it, but I think it all comes back to that. I also think that, you know, there's the fact that he's playing for the Jets now. It's easy to say LOL Jets and they're not going to be any good. And so, and like, let's be real too. Like the Jets owner, Woody Johnson, he worked for the Trump administration. A lot of the media leans very left and people are critical of that. Like it's all political nonsense. It's why like on my show, I try to just get away from that and just call it how it is. Like Aaron Rodgers, the teammate, has been unbelievable. You talk to guys on the record, like I have on the show, CJ Mosley, you know, Thomas Morstead, Joe Tippmann. They cannot say enough good things about Aaron Rodgers. Talk to guys off the record, coaches, people in the front office. Love the guy. His teammates voted him most inspirational last year. That wasn't like a thing that he just gave himself that award. That he won the Dennis Bird Award, one of the highest honors that you could get for a seasonal award from the Jets, voted on by his teammates. He took the largest pay cut. No one talks about this. He took a $35 million pay cut to help the Jets. He had a lower cap it than Zach Wilson last year. That like no one brings that up. It's he's selfish. Chris Candy's calling him a cancer. I mean, what a clown. Like it's very it feels very personal.
It does.
You know, and I could tell you the people that actually know Aaron or have interacted with Aaron only have very nice things to say about him. So look, at the end of the day, he's got to play well. I think he gets that. Like we're all supporting him now because we have no choice, but he has to deliver. And I think he knows that. And I like the fact that he's kind of embraced the, hey, we got to be good this year. Otherwise we're all probably going to be out. Like, I like it, man. Like, let's go do it now.
Is it fair to say he is the Kyrie Irving of the NFL? Almost.
I was thinking the same exact.
Right.
Yeah. People have said that before. I guess where I struggle with it is like Kyrie Irving, he just left the Nets for 2 weeks because he didn't feel like playing basketball. He posted the anti-Semitic film, and then it took a week and a half for him just to come out and say, I'm not an anti-Semitic person. There's just too many things with Kyrie that I feel weird painting Rodgers in that, because what has Aaron Rodgers really done that's bad? He didn't want to get the vaccine like half the country. You know what I mean? If you think about it, he supports a third party candidate. I mean, that's. I think when you really actually hear Aaron talk and you hear the things he has said, if you actually go back and look, he's been right about a lot of the stuff he said too. So I just struggle to paint him as a bad guy. I think he's a very unique dude. And I think at the end of the day, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And all these people betting against him because they don't agree with him politically. Ralph Bacchiano, that clown face, called him he's in the running with Harrison Butker for the worst human in the NFL. Last I checked, Von Miller's still employed. Tyreek Hill is still employed. We can go down the launch. Rasheed Rice is still employed. But Aaron Rodgers, you didn't get the COVID vaccine and you disagree with his political opinions. He's in the running for the worst human being in the NFL. Get your head out of your ass, Ralph. That's insane to say.
No, I agree. And real quick, and I know you got to get out of here. We're talking to Jake Asman. But when I say Kyrie Irving, I mean in terms of standing on what he believes in and not afraid to say it. I respect Kyrie for that part of it, for what he does.
That's fair. And look, I hope I hope the Aaron Rodgers arc follows the Kyrie arc from this year. I mean, Kyrie Irving's going to set the play in the NBA Finals. He's been all about ball this year.
Absolutely.
There's been no distractions. He's played the co-star role with Luka perfectly.
Yeah.
And like, I hope Aaron Rodgers can get the Jets to a Super Bowl. I'd sign for that right now.
Before you go, a lot of Knicks coverage from you this year. I was really excited about that. That was really great. This summer's a big summer for the Knicks. You're hearing things, about should we trade Julius? Should we run it back? Do we need a quote unquote big fish? If you're Leon Rose and Worldwide West, what do you do this summer?
Look, I think it's going to be tough for them to add another like superstar. Now, look, if Devin Booker becomes available or someone we're not thinking of, I think that changes your equation. Like, look what happened with Boston. Like, they redid their team only because Lillard got traded to Milwaukee, and then Drew Holiday was available, and then they were able to add him. So, like, you never know what the rest of the league does that allows maybe someone you're not thinking of to become available. But I think you got to run it back. You got to give this team a chance with a healthy Randall, healthy OG. Try and bring back Isaiah Hartenstein. I hope they can. I think he's super important. And kind of just upgrade along the margins, man. Maybe find a better backup point guard, maybe another wing. But at the end of the day, like
backup wing for OG. Yeah, he's injury prone. Yeah.
When this team was fully healthy, they were 15-2 in January. It was the best record they've had since like the Ewing Knicks in '94. Like, I want to see it through. I mean, I think there's a lot of really good player development on this team. Like, you look at just how much better I think the Knicks could be if they're healthy. I mean, let's put it like this: Josh Hart, who played every minute of these playoff games, he'd be coming off the bench if the Knicks were fully healthy. That's how insane their depth actually was in January. So, look, you can't ever expect, I guess, to be fully healthy, but it's a shame, man, because I just think if they just had OG, and let's say, like, Brunson hadn't fractured his hand yet, I think the series was probably over in 5. The Knicks wouldn't even have needed Game 6 or Game 7, but
I agree.
It was too many injuries, man. I mean, like, it was one thing to lose Randall and then Mitchell and then obviously Bogdanovich, but like you lose OG and then Hart's not at 100%. Obviously Brunson wasn't at 100%, and then his hand was shot. It was like, it wasn't meant to be.
What
like,
can you do?
The
Never saw nothing like this in my life, and I'm in my late 40s. It's insane.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're such a lovable team. Like, it was just like, usually I'm like angry when my teams get eliminated, but I was just sad. I was just like, it wasn't meant to be. The one thing I'll say though, I feel a little better watching Indiana get swept, because that would have been the Knicks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, congrats, Indiana, you beat the Knicks. You won the same amount of games in the Eastern Conference Finals the Knicks did.
Yeah, and bad job for Tyrese Halliburton with the Reggie Miller with the shit after the game. That was a classless move, So I was happy they got swept too.
But you know what though? Like, if you're gonna be the bad guy, you have to wear that 2 Game 7 before the game. You don't get to put that on afterward. That's not how this works.
This doesn't make no sense. Yeah,
come on. Like, you want to make a statement? I'll respect you if you wear that ball out and win Game 7 at the Garden. You don't get to put that. Like, he only would talk trash in the series when they were up like 15, and then he puts that on afterwards. Like, I'm glad they got swept. I couldn't have happened to a better team.
I agree. Listen, Jake, I really appreciate you joining us, man. Good luck with your show. We're tuning in, we're listening, and we really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me. Good luck with your show. I love the graphics. I love the banter, and man, you guys are the voice of the street, so it's an honor to be on with you.
Thank you so much.